The year is 1378. Europe, scarred by the Black Death, slowly rebuilds. In the quiet scriptorium of a Flemish monastery, Brother Thomas dedicated himself to the meticulous task of copying and preserving ancient texts. His life was one of quiet routine, punctuated only by the turning of pages and the scratching of his quill. One day, a new task fell upon him. Muster rolls, recently compiled in Ghent and Bruges, arrived at the monastery. These weren't sacred texts, but lists of men conscripted for military service, a mundane duty in service of the local counts and dukes. Brother Thomas began his work, carefully copying each name, village, and assigned task. He was a creature of habit, valuing precision above all else. Each letter was formed with deliberate care, each line perfectly straight. It was in the second roll, the one from Ghent, that he noticed something amiss. Listed among the conscripts was a man named Jan van Eyck, designated as farmhand. Nothing seemed extraordinary at first. But Brother Thomas had a remarkable memory for names and faces. He recalled a Jan van Eyck, a name whispered in the city, not as a tiller of soil, but as a weaver of exceptional skill, renowned for his intricate tapestries. He double-checked the ledger, a meticulously kept record of the trades and guilds of Ghent. There it was, Jan van Eyck, weaver, Guild of St. Luke. Why would a master weaver be listed as a simple farmhand? The discrepancy nagged at him. Was it a simple error, or was there something more concealed beneath the surface? He returned to the rolls, his gaze now sharpened, searching for further inconsistencies. He found another, then another. A skilled blacksmith listed as a laborer, a leather worker identified as a shepherd. Each discovery deepened the mystery, piquing his curiosity. Brother Thomas started to investigate taxation records. Skilled artisans faced crippling taxes due to guild restrictions. His heart quickened as a dreadful hypothesis began to surface. Could it be? Were these men deliberately misrepresenting their professions to evade crippling taxes and the restrictive practices of their guilds? He started to suspect a hidden world operating beneath the surface of Flanders society. The quiet, predictable world of Brother Thomas had been shattered. The muster rolls, meant to be simple lists, had become a window into a secret, a web of deception woven by ordinary people struggling to survive. He knew he couldn't ignore what he had found. He had to tell someone who could understand the implications and perhaps even do something about it. But who could he trust with such a dangerous secret? In the heart of Ghent, Lady Alara grappled with the disparities she witnessed daily. The city, though prosperous, harbored deep inequalities. She saw talented artisans stifled by rigid guild structures and farmers burdened by crippling taxes, their skills and potential squandered. Whispers of discontent reached her ears, veiled complaints about unfair levies and the stifling power of the guilds. Merchants spoke of exorbitant fees, artisans of restricted apprenticeships. These murmurs confirmed Alara's growing unease. Sergeant Elaine, ever vigilant, noted the rising tensions in Ghent. He was aware of the rumors circulating about tax evasion and guild corruption. Though loyal to his lord, he couldn't ignore the palpable sense of injustice simmering beneath the surface. A sealed message, delivered in secrecy, spoke of irregularities discovered within the Bruges and Ghent muster rolls. The messenger hinted at discrepancies that suggested widespread efforts to conceal true professions. The information corroborated Brother Thomas's painstaking work. He had unearthed a pattern, a deliberate falsification of records that hinted at a deeper conspiracy. Alara, using her access to official documents, began her own investigation. Comparing the muster rolls with tax records and guild rosters, she found glaring inconsistencies. Skilled weavers listed as simple farmhands, accomplished blacksmiths claiming to be mere laborers. She confided in Master Gerard, her trusted advisor. "These are not mere clerical errors, Gerard. This is a deliberate attempt to evade taxes and circumvent the guilds." Master Gerard cautioned prudence. Such accusations could destabilize the city, Alara. The guilds are powerful, and the Lord is wary of any challenge to his authority. Alara remained steadfast. But what of justice, Gerard? What of those who are forced to live in the shadows, their talents hidden, their potential wasted? Using discreet channels, Alara sent word to the monastery in Flanders, requesting a meeting with the scribe, Brother Thomas. Sergeant Elaine, meanwhile, noticed increased activity among certain individuals. He couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to unfold in Ghent. Under the cloak of secrecy, Lady Alara met with Brother Thomas in a secluded chapel just outside Ghent. The fate of the city, and perhaps the region, hung in the balance. Sergeant Elaine, a man forged in the crucible of military service, embodied the iron fist of Lord Beaufort's rule in Ghent. His duty was simple: maintain order, but the weight of that duty was becoming increasingly heavy. Ghent's marketplace, usually a vibrant hub of commerce, now simmered with discontent. Whispers of unfair taxes and guild oppression reached Elaine's ears, carried on the wind like seeds of rebellion. Lord Beaufort, growing increasingly paranoid, had tasked Elaine with investigating reports of unrest. Elaine, though loyal, felt a growing unease as he questioned the downtrodden, their stories painting a grim picture of hardship. Elaine witnessed firsthand the brutality of the tax collectors, their methods heavy-handed and often unjust. The sight fueled his growing doubts about the system he was sworn to uphold. Public displays of punishment were meant to quell dissent, but Elaine saw only simmering resentment in the eyes of the onlookers. He knew that fear alone could not maintain order indefinitely. The stark contrast between the opulent lives of the nobility and the grinding poverty of the common folk became increasingly apparent to Elaine as he patrolled the city's underbelly. Lord Beaufort, a man consumed by his own power, dismissed Elaine's concerns. He saw only threats where Elaine saw suffering. "Crush any dissent, Elaine. Show them the consequences of defiance," Lord Beaufort commanded, his voice ringing with cold authority. Elaine's duty was clear, but his conscience stirred. Torn between his loyalty and his growing sense of injustice, Elaine found himself questioning the very foundations of his service. Could he blindly follow orders that would inflict more suffering on the already burdened populace? The moment of truth arrived. Elaine and his men faced a crowd of protesters, their faces etched with desperation and anger. The air crackled with anticipation, a single spark threatening to ignite a conflagration. Elaine raised his hand, signaling his men to halt. He knew that violence was inevitable, but a sliver of hope remained that he could somehow avert the worst. "Hear me?" Elaine shouted, his voice cutting through the din. "I understand your grievances, but violence will solve nothing. Let us find a better way." Brother Thomas meticulously cross-referenced the muster rolls with the city's tax ledgers. The discrepancies jumped out at him, glaring like miscopied passages. Farm laborer here, farm laborer there. Yet the tax assessment suggested otherwise. Someone was hiding something. Lady Alara paced before the hearth, the flames mirroring the fire in her belly. Ghent, though prosperous, was built on a foundation of deceit. Artisans, the lifeblood of the city, were being forced into the shadows to survive. "This cannot stand," she murmured, resolve hardening her gaze. Under the guise of religious consultation, Lady Alara met with Brother Thomas. "The rolls indicate a weaver named Jan van Eyck claims to be a simple farmer," Brother Thomas said, adjusting his spectacles. "Yet his craftsmanship is known throughout the city." Lady Alara nodded grimly. "The guild taxes are crippling. He is not alone." Sergeant Elaine, ever vigilant, felt a shift in the city's atmosphere. Whispers of discontent, of hidden wealth and unfair burdens reached his ears. He dismissed them as idle gossip, yet a seed of doubt had been planted. Following the trail of falsified occupations, Alara and Brother Thomas ventured beyond Ghent's walls. The farmhouse of Jan van Eyck was, in reality, a clandestine weaving studio. The air hummed with the silent industry of hidden artisans. Jan van Eyck initially denied his true profession, fear etched on his face. But Alara, with her gentle persuasion, and Brother Thomas, with his irrefutable evidence from the rolls, convinced him to speak. "The guild taxes are unbearable, my lady," he confessed. "They demand nearly half of my earnings. How can I feed my family?" Alara, her voice resonating with genuine concern, promised Van Eyck to champion his cause. "Your skills are invaluable to Ghent. It is a grave injustice that you are forced to hide them," she declared. Brother Thomas meticulously documented every detail of their conversation. Elaine, while on patrol, overheard snippets of conversation, complaints about guild taxes, muttered anxieties about the upcoming muster. He saw fear in the eyes of the artisans, a fear that belied the city's apparent prosperity. The Weavers' Guild, alerted to Brother Thomas's inquiries, confronted him in a darkened alley. "Scribe," one official snarled, "you pry too deeply into matters that do not concern you. These rolls are ours to manage." They reeked of ale and arrogance. Alara, having foreseen the potential for such a confrontation, arrived with her guards. Her presence instantly silenced the officials. "The rolls are a matter of public record," she stated, her voice laced with steel, "and I shall ensure their accuracy." Elaine witnessed the encounter, his loyalty torn between his lord and the growing sense of injustice he felt. Lady Alara's actions, though defying the established order, resonated with his own sense of fairness. As dusk settled over Ghent, Alara and Brother Thomas stood together, their resolve strengthened by the day's events. The road ahead would be fraught with danger, but they were determined to unmask the artisans and bring about a fairer society. The fight had just begun. The monastery was quiet, save for the scratching of Brother Thomas's quill. He meticulously pored over names, comparing the muster rolls with guild records. Patterns began to emerge, whispers of hidden lives etched in ink. Lady Alara, in her opulent study, pondered the implications of Brother Thomas's findings. The stories hinted at a world far removed from the gilded cage of her nobility, a world of hidden resilience and suppressed ambition. Sergeant Elaine watched the flow of people through Ghent's gates. He saw not just faces but potential threats, whispers of unrest carried on the wind. The city felt different, uneasy. "The name Elias Schmidt appears on the muster roll as a farmhand," Brother Thomas whispered to Lady Alara. "But guild records show no Schmidt farming, only a master blacksmith, a woman taking her father's name." Lady Alara pondered the information. A woman, defying convention, preserving her family's legacy. "We must speak with her, Brother Thomas, carefully. Discretion is paramount." Elaine, patrolling the less savory corners of Ghent, noticed a clandestine meeting. Cloaked figures, hushed voices, signs of something amiss. He filed it away, another piece of the puzzle. The heat of the forge beat against Alara and Thomas as they entered the smithy. Elias did not pause his work, the rhythmic clang of hammer on metal the only sound in the room. "Elias Schmidt," Lady Alara began, her voice soft but firm. "We know the truth. We know you are a woman preserving your family's craft." Elias gripped her hammer tighter. "Who are you? What do you want? If word of this gets out, they'll take everything." "We are not here to expose you," Lady Alara said gently. "We seek to understand, to help. We want to find a way where you can practice your trade without fear." Returning to his post, Elaine was jumped. Two figures, cloaked and silent, attacked with surprising ferocity. It was a clear message. Someone wanted them silenced. Elaine, though wounded, fought them off. He knew then, they were not just uncovering secrets, they were walking into a viper's nest. The stakes had been raised, and he was in the middle of it. Now they would have to discover why. The investigation deepened, casting a long shadow over the church itself. Brother Thomas, driven by the pursuit of truth, uncovered a new layer of deception within the muster rolls. Lady Alara, receiving Brother Thomas's latest findings, felt a growing unease. The implications of clergy members living double lives threatened the very foundation of societal order. Sergeant Elaine, acting on Lady Alara's discreet instructions, found himself observing a tavern suspected of being frequented by a priest engaged in less than holy activities. The scene within the tavern was one of blatant revelry, a stark contrast to the solemn vows expected of a man of the cloth. With a grim resolve, Sergeant Elaine entered the den of vice, determined to uncover the truth behind the rumors. The priest's identity was confirmed, a man known for his sermons on piety, now exposed in a clandestine gambling operation. Back at the monastery, Brother Thomas documented the findings with a heavy heart. The hypocrisy within the church was a bitter pill to swallow. Lady Alara, faced with the evidence of clerical misconduct, realized the delicate nature of their investigation. Exposure could trigger a crisis of faith and societal upheaval. Sergeant Elaine, bound by duty yet burdened by conscience, presented the facts to Lady Alara, aware of the potential consequences. The news of the priest's activities reached the higher echelons of the church, resulting in a private and swift reprimand. Lady Alara and Brother Thomas discussed the implications of their findings, understanding that exposing the church's secrets could have unforeseen and potentially devastating consequences. The weight of their discoveries settled upon them, a heavy burden of truth in a world built on carefully constructed illusions. The path forward remained uncertain, shrouded in the shadows of the clergy's secrets. The marketplace in Ghent, usually a vibrant hub of commerce, felt different today. A palpable tension hung in the air, thicker than the smell of freshly baked bread. Sergeant Elaine watched as artisans whispered amongst themselves, their faces a mixture of anger and fear. He could sense the seeds of discontent taking root. Elaine witnessed a tax collector seizing a poor woman's meager wares. The injustice of it stung him. He'd seen similar scenes countless times, but lately the weight of his duty felt heavier. The faces of the oppressed were becoming harder to ignore. That evening, patrolling the city walls, Elaine wrestled with his conscience. Lord Beaufort's orders were clear: maintain order, suppress dissent. But what if the order he was sworn to uphold was fundamentally unjust? The question gnawed at him. The next morning, Elaine sought an audience with Lord Beaufort. He had prepared his words carefully, knowing the risk he was taking. The Lord's study, filled with symbols of wealth and power, felt suffocating. "My lord," Elaine began, his voice steady despite the unease he felt, "I have witnessed a growing unrest amongst the people. The taxes are crippling them, and the guild restrictions are stifling their livelihoods." Beaufort's face hardened. "Are you questioning my authority, Sergeant? These are matters of state beyond your concern. Your duty is to obey, not to judge." "With respect, my lord," Elaine replied, "I am not judging, but I have sworn to protect the people of Ghent, and I cannot stand by while they suffer unjustly." Beaufort rose, his eyes glinting dangerously. "You forget your place, Sergeant. Your loyalty is to me, not to the rabble. Remember that." Elaine bowed, his heart heavy. He had spoken his mind, but his words had fallen on deaf ears. He left the study, the weight of his lord's displeasure pressing down on him. Walking through the deserted streets, Elaine felt utterly alone. He was caught between his duty and his conscience, between the demands of his lord and the suffering of the people he was sworn to protect. Which path would he choose? Unbeknownst to Elaine, Lady Alara watched him from a darkened window. She had heard whispers of his growing unease, of his questioning of Lord Beaufort's policies. She wondered if he could be an ally in her quest for a more just society. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of hope, Elaine made a decision. He would continue to serve, but he would also seek justice, even if it meant defying his lord. The seeds of discontent had been sown, and Elaine was determined to see them bloom, one way or another. The rhythmic scratching of Brother Thomas's quill had been replaced by the frantic thump of his heart. A pounding echoed through the monastery, not the regular call to prayer, but something far more urgent and threatening. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that they were coming for him. Sergeant Elaine stood as the embodiment of Lord Beaufort's authority. His orders were clear: apprehend Brother Thomas and confiscate any seditious materials. He felt a knot of unease in his stomach, a conflict between his duty and the growing doubts that plagued his mind. Every rustle of parchment, every creak of the floorboards amplified his fear. Brother Thomas worked with desperate haste, concealing the evidence of their investigation. The muster rolls, the tax ledgers, all the secrets he had unearthed, were now a deadly liability. Lady Alara was taken by surprise. Accusations of treason echoed in the grand hall of her estate, shattering the illusion of her secure world. Her influence, her wealth, seemed to dissolve in the face of Lord Beaufort's wrath. Elaine watched Lady Alara, her usual composure faltering. He knew the charges against her were politically motivated, a consequence of challenging the established order. The weight of his duty pressed down on him, a heavy burden on his conscience. Brother Thomas offered no resistance. He knew that resistance was futile, that the forces arrayed against them were too powerful. As he was dragged through the monastery, he caught the eye of a young novice, a silent plea for help in his gaze. Lady Alara faced Lord Beaufort with unwavering resolve. She refused to be intimidated, to be silenced. "The truth will come out," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction, "no matter how hard you try to suppress it." Sergeant Elaine stood as a silent observer, torn between his loyalty to Lord Beaufort and his growing respect for Lady Alara. He knew that the path he chose now would determine the fate of many, including himself. Confined within the cold, stone walls of the castle dungeon, Brother Thomas pondered the identity of the betrayer, who had revealed their secret investigation, condemning them to this fate. Under house arrest, Lady Alara knew she had to act quickly. She trusted very few and had to find a way to communicate to those she could trust. She was concerned that there could be a spy amongst her close retinue. Sergeant Elaine, burdened by his conscience, made a difficult decision. He could no longer blindly follow orders that perpetuated injustice. He planned a dangerous course of action, one that could cost him his life. A flicker of hope ignited in Brother Thomas's heart. A message, smuggled into his cell, hinted at a plan, a glimmer of salvation in the encroaching darkness. Perhaps all was not lost. The air in the bishop's palace hung heavy with anticipation. Brother Thomas, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs, clutched the meticulously compiled evidence. It was a moment of truth, a plea for justice on behalf of the countless hidden lives in Flanders. Lady Alara, despite her noble upbringing, felt a kinship with the oppressed. She understood the precariousness of their situation and the necessity for change. Her resolve was unwavering, her voice the clarion call for those who had been silenced for too long. Sergeant Elaine, the soldier sworn to uphold the law, now stood before the church, a testament to the shifting tides. He had witnessed the injustices firsthand and knew that true order could only be achieved through fairness. His presence was a silent promise of protection and a declaration of allegiance to a new kind of justice. The bishop, a man accustomed to unquestioned authority, listened with a growing unease. The meticulously documented discrepancies, the hidden lives laid bare before him, challenged the very foundation of the established order. Brother Thomas, fueled by righteous indignation, presented the evidence with trembling hands. He spoke of artisans forced to toil as farm laborers, women denied their rightful inheritance, and clergymen supplementing their meager incomes through forbidden trades. He painted a vivid picture of a society riddled with injustice. Lady Alara, with her inherent understanding of power dynamics, argued for a more equitable system. She spoke of the untapped potential within the common people, the skills and ingenuity that were being stifled by oppressive laws and guild restrictions. She proposed reforms that would acknowledge their contributions and create a more just society. Sergeant Elaine's presence was a stark reminder of the potential for unrest. He stood as a bulwark against those who would cling to the old ways, a silent promise that the winds of change would not be easily resisted. The vested interests, the powerful merchants and guild leaders, watched with growing alarm. They saw their privileges threatened, their authority challenged. The prospect of a more equitable society filled them with dread. The bishop, torn between his duty to the church and the undeniable evidence before him, struggled with his conscience. He knew that reform was necessary, but he also feared the consequences of upsetting the established order. Brother Thomas, his fate intertwined with the bishop's decision, held his breath. The weight of countless hidden lives rested upon this moment, a plea for justice hanging in the balance. Lady Alara, her gaze unwavering, prepared herself for either victory or defeat. Regardless of the outcome, she knew that the seeds of change had been sown, and the fight for justice would continue. Sergeant Elaine, the pragmatic soldier, stood ready to enforce the bishop's decision, whatever it might be. He had come to believe in the necessity of change, but he also understood the dangers of unchecked rebellion. His duty was to maintain order, but his allegiance now lay with a new kind of justice, a justice for all. The bishop leaned back in his ornate chair, his expression unreadable. The weight of the evidence presented by Brother Thomas, Lady Alara, and Sergeant Elaine hung heavy in the air. The future of Ghent, perhaps even Flanders, rested on his decision. Lady Alara watched the bishop, her mind racing. She knew the potential for good that could come from acknowledging the hidden lives and skills of the common people, but also the chaos that could erupt if the reforms were too drastic, too sudden. Sergeant Elaine, ever the pragmatist, considered the consequences. He'd seen firsthand the struggles of the people, but also understood the need for order. His loyalty was divided between his lord and his growing sense of justice. "The evidence is compelling," the bishop finally declared, his voice resonating through the chamber. "These muster rolls reveal a truth we cannot ignore. However, radical change would be too disruptive." Brother Thomas felt a surge of anticipation mixed with unease. He knew compromise was inevitable, but prayed the reforms would be meaningful. Lady Alara recognized the bishop's reluctance to embrace sweeping change. She prepared herself to champion the cause of reform, even if it meant facing resistance. News of the bishop's decision spread quickly through Ghent. The reforms, though limited, acknowledged the existence of hidden trades and offered some relief from crippling taxes and guild restrictions. It was a start. Skilled artisans, once forced to conceal their talents, began to emerge from the shadows. Their contributions to the city's economy and culture were finally recognized, albeit partially. Sergeant Elaine observed the changes, his initial skepticism slowly giving way to a grudging respect for the resilience and resourcefulness of the common people. The reforms, while imperfect, had brought a measure of stability and hope. Back in the monastery, Brother Thomas continued his work, meticulously documenting the impact of the reforms. He knew the journey towards a more just society was far from over, but he had planted a seed that would continue to grow. Lady Alara, standing on her balcony, surveyed the city. The reforms had sparked a new sense of possibility, a belief that even in the rigid social structures of medieval Europe, change was possible. The spirit of Ghent was ignited. The muster rolls, once instruments of oppression, had become symbols of hope and resilience. They served as a testament to the hidden lives and enduring spirit of ordinary people who dared to defy expectations and forge their own destinies in a world determined to confine them.